Hi everyone, in almost 5 minutes time we're going to continue making the Sasquatch family from polymer clay. This week we'll be working on the head. See you then. guys, welcome. I'm Carly from Carly's Creative Clay. I hope you've all had a great week so far. Hi Fairy Hedgehog, lovely to see you. This week we're continuing on the project that we've been working on. I make models from polymer clay, so we've been working on a Sasquatch family. If you go onto my YouTube channel, you'll see all the previous weeks where we've done the armature, abdomen, legs, arms, that bundle of food. I don't specifically show the mother and child being made, but it's following exactly the same process as I'm using for the large male. So I put them to one side and we're going to focus on this guy. Now, as you see, we've got the bit of the wire armature that's had some foil in the middle of it and covered in masking tape. That's what's sticking up there. Now, we're going to start off working on the face and then put the back of the head in. So we're going to go back to the clay that we already saved for the skin tones that we did on the feet and the hands. That's that brown and white mix with a little bit of black.
Evil Monkey Spaz says
hi. Hi Evil Monkey Spaz, it's lovely to see you. I hope you've had a good week. And the leftover patterned clay that we used for making all the fur, if you want to see how I made this, you go back to the very first week where I discussed armatures and abdomens. Sorry. My hay fever's been going a little bit nuts today. So I'm a bit sneezy and needing drinks, so I apologise in advance. So those are the materials we're going to be using. The only other material that I'm going to be using today is, let's hold one up for you. Whoop. Tiny little glass eyes. I got a set of them off of eBay relatively cheaply. Remember, if you get the plastic ones, you are in danger of them melting in the oven when you bake your clay. So go for glass.
It says mine too, mostly itchy throat symptoms.
Yeah, it's definitely spring has sprung. The other thing I've done is I got my wire cutters, and the pin that was sticking out the back of the eye to secure it in was over twice as long as what it is at the moment. I cut it back because I don't want to interfere with it going too far into the head. So that's what I've done with these. I'm going to put them to one side in a dish until we're at the eye phase, because they have a wonderful habit of vanishing even when you put it on a very secure place on your work surface, out of the way. Yeah, still go to pick them up and they still vanish. Say the V. Right, so I'm going to start with some face clay. Now, I've taken off quite a bit. I've been a bit busy this morning, so I didn't condition this brown up that much. So I'm just softening it up so it's easier to work with. And when I talk about conditioning clay, what I'm doing here is exactly what you should be doing with your clay before you use it. Although I have to admit, I don't condition up obviously patterned clay. Once you mixed it, if you try to do this with patterned clay, you'll lose all the definition. So you have to work with the fact that the plasticizer isn't evenly mixed in, so it is prone to be more crumbly and easy to crack. So that'll do fine. Now I'm going to take a decent blob that'll cover the front of that face. Now, Sasquatches or Bigfoot, the name is interchangeable amongst a huge number of different names. It seems like every area's got a story and they've all got their own names for it. And it's been a fascinating journey making these, because I've been listening to Sasquatch Reports Online. There's a channel on YouTube called Sasquatch Chronicles, where this guy called Vic takes reports from people, and it's been very interesting listening to it all. Right, I'm just doing a flat disc, not very thin, and I'm stopping at the neck height, pushing it down, and then what I'm going to do is take some extra clay and just bring it round the back so that I'm enclosing it so that disc don't fall off. Now do your best not to trap any air. So how you do that is, when you join your clay up, make sure you leave an area where the air can escape, and then you push down through that channel before closing it over. Be careful, you don't want your clay to run away with you and end up right down the back, because we need to put patterned fur on that back area. We're just using this as an anchor point, so I keep that back pretty thin, and I'm using my fingers just to push it all into place and seal over that join line. And that's not because of neatness, because again we're going to cover all this. What it's doing is, when we start to sculpt the face, it's anchoring that clay in place where we want it. So bring it up, make sure it is anchored at the bottom. You don't want it loose. I mean, look, I can pick it up by that bit of clay now. If you can't do that and it's falling off, then you've got a problem. And yes, when you've carved fur into and then baked it, when you start to handle it again to make more additions, you're going to get all this sort of crumbing, and you've got to be able to pay attention and sweep it to one side so you don't get it all in your raw clay, because it will, you can clean it out by either, if you've got a very steady hand, using tweezers, or what I do is get isopropyl on a cotton bud and just wash the surface off. Now I've got a ball tool, and you can use the tip of a ball tool, but I find it leaves a dragging motion. What I like to do first is use that metal side bit and just roll in to that joint. I'll do one patch and you'll see, then I hold it up so you can see what I mean. There we go. Right, hold him up. Let's see, can you see properly where it's, I've just pushed it right into the clay, as opposed to there where you can see there's a big, it looks almost like a crack. It's not pushed in properly. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing, is just going to go around, roll that raw clay on that edge just to join it. Now if you're not careful, you'll smudge your raw clay all the way over all the work that you've done. So you're trying to only take a little bit, the smallest amount of raw clay needed to push that and secure it flat onto the baked stuff without pushing it too far. And you can use your fingers. I've used the side of knitting needles and all sorts of things like that. Right, only bit I need to do now is this bit under the head, because it's got a weird shape to it anyway. There we go. Right, now so we've got a rough head shape.
Liz says, hello, hope everyone is okay.
Hi Liz, welcome, it's lovely to see you. Now, do have a bit of a chin, but not much. They are reported as not really having a neck. The head really does just sit on the shoulders, and you don't get to see any ears, but you do have quite a pronounced brow ridge and quite a large nose. So that's where we're going to keep those points in mind.
Liz says, love your little family.
Thank you very much, Liz. That's lovely of you to say. It's been fun. For the longest time, if you look, I totally avoided doing anything on human spectrum because humanoids are the hardest thing to sculpt. But my best friend said really I needed to start tackling this, so I have gone on quite a journey into human sculpting, and they're not perfect yet, but they're getting there. And that's one of the other things I was going to mention. I've been talking to Arty Hearty Life. You'll see her commenting on other videos, and she suggested that because the bits that I find the hardest are the hands, feet and face, that instead of making full models, I spend some of my spare time just sculpting those three elements, and when they're done I scrunch them up and redo it again, just so I can get some practice in without worrying about a whole project. Now I'm trying to decide on head thicknesses, whether I need to add a bit more to that face in order to get that chin to stick out a bit, and I think I'm going to. So, and you can do this because it works really well. Once you've got that base on, you can then start to add more clay to get the face shape that you want. So the chin goes quite far down onto the chest line, so I'm bringing the clay, drawing it downwards so it's sitting where I want, and shaping it into roughly the kind of face shape that I would like for my Sasquatch. And obviously there will be different face shapes in whatever you're sculpting. If it's a humanoid, you don't have to go for the model thin face all the time. If you're looking humans, there are a lot of differences, and all of them are absolutely fine. So if I was keeping it without adding all that fur under the chin, I would be getting the side of my ball tool and taking that join line out like that and sculpting the shape how I want. So I do it a little bit, but where I'm going to add another layer over the top, it's not so important. Just maybe a bit under the chin there slightly. But the important bit is that you didn't trap any air and you're getting the right kind of shape that you want. So, yep, right, that'll do perfectly for me. Now, the thing that doesn't feel quite right when you're sculpting a face, you instinctively want to put the eyes too far up. You want to put them in the top half, and that's not right. If you take the head, the eyes go halfway down. So there should be the same amount up as there is down. So you can give yourself a guideline like that with something straight, because there's nothing more annoying, and I know because I do it all the time, of sculpting your face and then finding that one of the eyes is slightly offset. So that's your marker's note of where your going to start structuring everything round. Now, if you look online, a lot of sculptors will do the eyes first, then the nose, then the mouth. I find if you do the eyes and then try and get the nose in, when you're trying to smooth down all the join lines, you're distorting the eyes that you've just done. Does that make sense? So I tend to go nose first. So some of the YouTubers out there who have been sculpting for forever are able to push around the existing clay in order to make a nose. I am not that good. I build up. So what I do is I get the kind of nose proportion size by holding it on the face, and you want it slightly smaller than the nose that you want to end up with. So I want to end up with a nose kind of that size. So what I'm going to do is take a pinch off that for my ball. Now the reason for that is we're going to push out the nostrils and flare them. So all that space that you're creating for nostril cavity is going to be expanding the clay size. Yeah? Quick drink. Now, before I get attaching, I'm going to get my set of small ball tools. And you can get these off of Etsy, Amazon, eBay, all sorts. And they do a small set like this. The largest one does not come in this pink. It comes with a stick like this. But I used it so much I broke the stick. So I covered it in clay. They also go up to some very big sizes. So you get ball tools like that. They do have a use, the big ones, for the clay in. But for face sculpting, I like to focus on the little ones. So we've got our nose. I'm going to flatten it at the bottom, so it's a teardrop that you flattened the rounded bottom, the widest end, and we're going to put it so that the base of the nose is just about a third of the way between the remaining bottom space. So if you take from that eye line down to the chin, divide that in your mind in 3. The line for the top third is where your nose is going to sit. Now, there ain't no way around it. There is maths involved in faces. I'm going to pinch that bridge out a bit. And whilst I'm pinching, I'm also pushing down. Now, like we did with the head clay, we need to secure this clay on before we start trying to push those nostrils out, or it's in danger of coming off. So again, I will use the side of a ball tool and just roll it down the bridge of that nose, or you can use the actual ball itself. I think on this one I will use my biggest one and just join the bridge of the nose only. You're stopping at where the nostril flare would be. That's your first bit of joining, and vanish out that join line. Same on the other side. So this is why I very much recommend you're going to do lots of different baking stages on your clay work, because if you're handling your piece this much and you hadn't baked, all that fur would be smudged away by your hands whilst you're working on other bits like the face. So we've got the 2 sides smoothed in. Whoop. Yeah, so we now got to do that bridge of the nose, and again I use the side for that, and you just roll it and flatten it in like that. and you can tap that line down. Now, the younger the person you're making, the fewer you want to make any dips or creases on the skin surface. The older it is, the more you want to have wrinkles and pits and sags and all that sort of imperfect stuff. So there we go. That would be the nose on, like that. Now, lastly, that underside, like we did with the top of the bridge, we're going to use the side of the ball tool and just push that down and stick it flat, and we're going to need one of the really small ones to get in there. If you haven't got money to buy ball tools, the thing that I suggest you do is get some cocktail sticks, some wooden cocktail sticks, and you make them from polymer clay. So let me get one out to show you, and you can do these in different sizes. You cover the end of the stick in the clay, you push it down very, very firmly, make sure that it's stuck on hard enough that you can't slide it up. Then you start to shape the ball tool with your hands, and you can bring it down to very, very small up to quite big, and that will work as a good ball tool. You just got to make sure that you spend some time smoothing down the ball's surface so you don't end up with ridgy marks. Okay, so I've smoothed in under that nose like so. Oop, can you see? There we go. Yeah, so no join lines there, no join lines going there. The only bits that I've not smoothed in are those bits around the nostrils there, and that's good because it helps us get that flared look. So depending on the nose size that I'm doing, I either use this tiny ball tool, or I will use a pin tool, and I suggest you practice this because it is a bit tricky. So what I suggest you do is literally get a bit of clay, form a nose on it, bit of scrap clay, rough nose shape like that, and then practice nostrils. And if you mess it up, you could just scrunch it up and keep practicing. So I'll show you on this big one what I'm going to do. You're going to go in flat to where the lip is, and you're going to imagine there's a dividing line there, and you're putting that first hole in, just the tip, and bringing it down to the surface of the lip like that, and just starting to push out towards the nostril. And I'm starting to turn the point so that I'm flaring the nostril. I can feel how deep against the clay I'm going, and I made sure it's not thin. The whole clay on the inside is that thick, so the thinner the clay, the more chance you are to put the point through instead of flaring it. And then you need to come up and bring that nostril near to the tip. And again, same on the other side, you leave enough room for, what's that bit that divides your nostril? Well, that bit of cartilage there. Bring that down flat to the lip, up, and then you're flaring out to the other side. See? And you now got more of that nose sort of effect, and you can then start to do things like bring the tip into a point, mess around with the actual nose shape.
The nasal septum.
Okay. Oh, the nasal septum, apparently. So that's what I'm doing. That's a really rough one. But I'm doing it in mini on a tiny Sasquatch. So the angle that you put that point in makes a difference. So it's a easy mistake to think I need to avoid all these plants, so I just come in like that, and you then end up with a hole that's actually, if I followed what feels comfortable with that, I'll be at the side of the nostril pretty quick. So sometimes you have got to sacrifice an awkward hand to get the right sort of direction for your nose. This nose needs more of a point to it. I think I'm going to shape it a little bit more before I come in and do that nostril. There we go. Right, that's more like what I want. So, coming in, little hole, down flat to, let's see, can I hold it up? Is that better angle, Jamie?
The light is worse.
How's that?
Yep.
Right, now I'm going to just rest my thumb lightly against the tip so I've got something to help the clay resist. And in the other side, like that. So I got the holes looking right, but I need to flare the nostrils out a bit now. So again, gentle, gentle, gentle. You really don't want to come at this with a heavy hand, and if you're someone who gets shaky hands, either leave this for a good day or don't attempt to put in flared nostrils. Shape the actual clay teardrop into a more flared shape so you can actually, I'll quickly show you that. Right, if you've got shaky hands and you can't do nostrils, how I'd do it is this. So you pinched out your nose like that. What I would do is I'd push it down so it's a bit flatter and wider, got the bridge in still, but then you come in with a ball tool and you make flared nostrils like that from the outside. See? Ooh, I'm doing it really scruffy because I'm doing it quick, and then come in and just poke out a little hole to make it look like there's a nostril. Do you see what I mean? Yeah? So that's the safer way of doing it, but this is the more realistic way of doing it. Dealer's choice. So this is the nose we've ended up with. I am pretty happy with that, but I want to define a little bit more around the outside, so I'm just going to come in with the ball tool and bring that bridge into more definition. And you can spend a whole heap of time fiddling doing this. I know I have many times. Right, now the other thing, can you see, that's when I get the light, there are top lip there, the dimples where my tools have been resting. They will look a bit shonky. What you do, dry paintbrush, and it just gets rid of some of that. Have I got too soft a one there? Taking a bit of time, but you just keep going over And instead of losing all of the detail you've put in, it just starts to take out some of those weird marks and blend them in. Yeah? So can you see they're not there no more? So it's always good to have a dry paintbrush just to start tidying up. Right, now we've got the nose in, now I can start doing the eyes. So again, make sure that they're level, and we're going to do a little cavity. I think a bigger ball tool is needed for that, probably about this size. Starting next to the nose, halfway up the bridge, and I'm making a little eye socket. Make sure the other side it is level and that you're not going to catch your nose. Halfway up the nose, in the middle, making a little dent where you want your eye. Okay? Yeah? Now, what I tend to do is get some white clay. First off, let's get rid of all these crummy bits because I don't want them in my white clay. We're going to take a small amount, tiny bit of white. See, real small ball. That might actually, no, that might be okay. Same size on each. Yeah, let's take a little more of that. You don't want it to fill up your eye cavity because this is not my final eye. If you remember, I'm using the glass ones. What I'm going to do is fill up behind the eye cavity with white so that it reflects light through the glass better. So, remembering which ball tool you used, you're going to use the same one again. Pick the ball up, put it in the middle of that eye cavity, and you want to push it in, and you want to push it up the sides of that cavity and into the back so that it's not just at the back but it's level. Can you see? So it's level with the surface but fully filling that gap. Again, same on the other side. Just take your time, little taps like that, and if it does stick up slightly, that's fine because we're going to put eyelids in anyway, which will go over the top edge and cover all that. Now let's get my eyes out. I got a really good tool with one of these little stick crystals onto a bit of canvas sets, and it helps you pick up beads and crystals. I have no idea what it's called, but it's got like a sticky dot end, and what I find really useful, it places eyes really well. So if you make sure you center it like so onto your eye, push it down firmly, it holds it. And you can do it with tweezers, that's what I used before I got this, but this is so much easier. See, it pushes it right into place, and with that white behind it, can you see how much the colours pop? If I'll show you what it would look like otherwise. So just some brown, pick up this eye, push into the brown, look at the difference. See what I mean? One looks far more, here we go, yeah? The other option, if you don't want to do white clay, and arguably it bounces even more light around, is a tiny little circle of tin foil. You place that over the hole and use your ball tool to do exactly what I did with white with tin foil, and it will bounce even more light around and make your eyes positively gleam. But there's no point doing this with eyes that are not see-through. So if you're not using glass or some such for your eyes and you're just making clay eyes, don't bother backing it with white and all that. You're just wasting your time. Right, our eyes are in. Now, at this point, have a proper look. Make sure they're level. Yeah? And then you go, someone else, Jamie, are they level? Yes. Right. Because it's so hard to fix once you've got your eyelids on and not ruin your eyelids. Now, you can put a bottom eyelid in and then just push the clay over like that for a top eyelid, or you can make some eyelids, which is what I tend to do. But you really don't need a lot of clay. Tiny bits. Actually, this one's already warmed up. Tiny bit of clay. You want a couple of very small balls, like so. Now, I always start with bottom eyelid. I think most people do, because it sits under almost the top eyelid in the corner. It looks odd when you do it the other way around. So I'm rolling out some very tiny sticks, and then I'm pushing them so that they're flat, so that they're thin. Now, there's no way you're going to get them off by pulling them and not snapping them. So use the tissue blade just to lift them off that surface. Okay? But you will frustrate the heck out of yourself trying to do it without a blade. And I pick them up with a ball tool. I tend to try and go for one slightly bigger than I think I'm going to need. Like so. Come on, pick up. There we go. Then you're going to put it down on your model. Let's come up here. And then shape that eyelid where you want it in that space. So, like so. Doesn't matter that it's coming quite a long way down the face. You'll be able to blend that in and make it vanish. See? Like that. And we'll sort that corner out, so that extra bit of clay, so even though the clay was too large for the area, you just smooth it right in like that and it vanishes nicely. And putting in an eyelid does two things. It stops your creation looking extremely startled, and secondly, it holds in that glass eyeball that you've placed. So you can use things like beads for eyes. I often do, especially with my dragons. Right, but into the corner near the nose, and then you work out to the outside. It's far easier to do it that way than it is to try and smooth it into that nose if it's too big. See? Whereas this, can you see, it's definitely too big for that area. We've got all that bit sticking off. You can either pinch that off once you smoothed it in, or you can just literally blend it into the side of the face and just make it vanish. Whoops, there we go.
Liz says, makes such a big difference.
It really does. Eyelids often do, and I know there's a lot of artists that will just put a top eyelid in. You can see some creases there that I don't want. Or when you've got those little crack creases, use a decently big sized ball tool to smooth them out. There we go. Right, Bottom eyelids. Yeah, there's a lot of artists that just literally do top eyelids. And it's weird when you've got this big circular under eye, I think. I know it's fashionable and very kawaii, but I don't know. I'd rather do it properly. Right, we're going to do the top eyelid now. Very similar to the bottom eyelid, but a bit more of a semicircle this time. So again, that ball, well, instead of a stick, I've gone for a ball. You're going to push that flat like that, and then come in, and I only need one, don't I? Sorry. And chop it in half, so you've got a nice straight line semicircle. Yeah. And again, doesn't matter if the eyelid is too big for the eye. We can, when we put it on, we can just smooth it into fit. The problem is if it's too small for the eye, then you can't use it. You've got to take it back off and remake it. Right, now I put it in place like that, so it's roughly in the right spot, but I'm making sure the back is flat against the head. And then you start to smooth in around the corners, because you want to get that curve. And don't worry if your eyelid looks pretty shut at the moment. I'll show you how to get your eyes open back up a bit more. That is too big a ball tool for that corner, making him look frowny. If you end up with a big ball tool in the corner, it pushes the eyelid down. The further down the eyelid is next to the nose, the more cross they look. Right, now, sorry, there we go. So I got that top eyelid in. Now what I'm going to do is use a slightly bigger one. Sorry, here we go. Just to shape that eye socket around that eyelid. Because if you look, there is a dip around the top of the eyelid under your eyebrow. And that's what we expect to see on an eye. So like that. Let's get the next eye in. So again, we're going to make sure it's released from the board. Pick it up. You can use your ball tool, you can use your fingers, whatever you feel comfiest with. You wouldn't believe how often that happens. See? Hold. Once I got it held, I held it back up for the camera. There we go. Right, we're back up. We're in business. So, repeat the previous process. You're smoothing in the top of the eyelid to the rest of the face, leaving that nice sort of round shape that you get with an eyelid. Like that, and making sure you've got a straight line and the back of the eye has that sort of dip. Now that they're in, both of them, you can start messing around with how open you want them. And with that, to do that, you get your needle and you just go under the lid and start to very slightly tap it more open, and the same for the bottom lid. I'll bring that down. I will show you. See, like that. So it's a bit more open up, so you can see the before on that side let's do the after. And this again, you need a real steady hand for, because you jolt it and you tear the eyelid.
Untitled Life said, "Hiya, sorry to be so late. We just got back from your space. Your space, sorry."
No bothers. How is everyone there?
Naturally, there'll be a delay.
Right. And again, on the bottom eyelid, I just want to open that up a little more along that side and down the bottom here. Bring that up. Right. Can you see the eyes are a bit more open now? Just going to smooth in along that edge there a bit because I'm not happy with the definition around that eye. Now, like that. You don't want to make too many very hard lines. If you start to bring some shaping in like that and it looks very harsh, just gently either brush over it with a paintbrush or your finger.
How do Life says okay. I presume that means everyone's doing okay.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you for letting me know how they're doing. Right, that looks a bit liney to me. So let's take some of those lines out. There we go. Right, now the other thing I'm going to do, put a few crow's feet in. Because we have those, so those are like tiny little crease lines at the corner of your eyes.
How do Life says, I'll tell you more when we talk.
Absolutely, I will message you probably tomorrow. Right, yeah. I am terrible for this. I will go in and fiddle around and spot something else I want to just change here and just change there. I can spend ages on eyes, but that'll do. That's a decent set of eyes, I think. So we're now on to that mouth. Let's put them down. Grab a sip of drink. Now, the mouth clay. I tend to go for shades of pink mixed in with things like oranges and whites to get down to skin tones. But
the Sasquatch is looking really good.
Thank you.
The fur is amazing.
Thank you very much. For this, I've gone magenta pink, a pinch of orange, a pinch of white, and the tiniest little bit of brown, because I wanted some brown in it because the skin tones are in the brown. And we really don't need a lot of that. And what I tend to do, because I always mix up more than I need, I've shown in previous videos, at the back of my desk I got these boxes full of these little drawers like this, and I put all the similar colours together. This is my skin tone one, so that is what magenta, orange and white makes. It's a very good pale skin tone. If you want to start going into the more darker, you've got to put in more magenta to it. And if you start wanting to go down the dusky side, it's really small amounts of brown. Very small. It's easier to put it in a tiny bit at a time than it is to try to balance it back out when you put too much in. That's how you end up with a massive block in one tone. Right, tiniest bit of pink. Probably like that. Let's hold it. So smaller than you would think you need for your mouth. And we're going to bring that out into a stick and point the corners. Sorry. Into a stick the length you want your mouth. But make sure you've tapered those corners into a sharp point. Both sides. you do that by rolling on them specifically like that.
The Junkman ADV says, I wish I could sculpt humanoid or animals to bring my dioramas to the next level.
I was exactly like you. Let me show you something. This is the first thing I ever sculpted 2 years ago. Really, really, really not that great. Very, very basic. What you'll find when you get started, everything you make is very slightly better than the thing you made before. And over the years, they become better and better. And what I found, even back in the early days, when I spotted every single mistake and thought nobody will like this, people liked it. I started selling on Etsy probably a week and a half into me starting claying, and it was me believing no one would buy any of this because I think it's not that great. And it was to prove myself wrong. Whenever I set myself challenges like that, whenever I think this isn't going to work, I do it anyway just to see. And people did buy. And you can really see through the YouTube videos and the stuff in my shop, I've not hid my past and how it didn't start out like this. So you'll get there, and I'm fully supportive. If there's anything I can do to help, anything you want me to show you specifically on how to do, you can always message me. I'm totally up for it, because I went through my school life being told I was terrible at art. So when people come to me and say I can't do something, I'm like, that's a challenge to me. I like to prove that sort of thinking wrong, because generally it is. It just means that you've either got to practice a lot more to get to do it how you would like to, or someone hasn't shown you the right skills for it or something like that, but it's not insurmountable. Right, you can fiddle around with the placing of your mouth so that you've got enough chin still showing. And if you're doing a human, you can define the chin out by using your side of your ball tool just to start to bring a chin into shape like that. Once you've got your mouth where you want it, you're just going to tap it down. We're not wanting a hard line join like we did with the nose and the eyes, but we want it securely staying in place so it's not going to fall off after baking, because that's really annoying when that happens, because then you're gluing fiddly bits. So once I've got the mouth in place, the next thing I do is that lip dent. And again, get a ball tool that is small enough to put that lip dent in place. And you want it in line with that nose cartilage. And you can do a little line like that. A lot of us do have a slight dent between our nose and lip. Come on, nostril, you look not flared enough. There you go. Right, see? Then, even fiddlier bit. You can either use a craft knife, your needle tool. What I really, really love is this. This is a felting needle. Bloody evil thing to get stabbed with, because that point is really far more pointy. I mean, if you look, that's the standard needle that we use in polymer clay compared to a felting needle. Yeah? It's a lot finer. But you can get these thinner lines. And what you find, the side of a felting needle, it's actually in a triangular shape. It's not round. So you've got these very thin little raised edges that can help with things like a mouth. But you want to get your line very straight, and there's a few tips for this. Firstly, don't hold your piece up like that. You've got too much waving on your hands that you're liable to jog with. Get it down onto your flat surface. Your arm is rested against it. It's still. Same with this one. As much down as you possibly can. I know it's not great for camera angles, but it helps you be steady. The other thing that helps you do a steady line, whilst you're actually cutting it, hold your breath. I know that sounds weird, but the act of you just breathing in and out sways your body very slightly. I'm not saying hold your breath all the way through all your claying. You never survive it. But these really fiddly lines that you need to be straight, then it's worth it. So I'm going to put the line in. I know I'm going to be hunched over like this. It's terrible camera work, but it'll be quick, and then I'll hold up what I've done. Can't talk holding my breath. I'll be with you in 2 seconds. Okay, right. Done. Now, I'll show you what I did. I didn't drag around the arch and up. You would end up with a clumping of clay in that corner. What I did was I went down like that, pushed, lifted, and then went along that side and just pushed into that ridge and moved the needle sideways to create that line, and then at the end did the join across the middle. See? Fiddly, but worthwhile doing. And if the lips are too big, you can tap them so that they're not so pronounced stuck out. You can go into the gap that you just carved and take the sides of it and just slant them so that it's not such a straight line, so that they look like there's more of a curved edge. So can you see? Very, very subtle, but it looks more like the roundedness of lips. And all I've done is taken it along that join line and just rounded off the inside lip. Yeah? So we've now got the basic face. So we need to start putting all of that hair and face hair and eyebrow ridge. So let's start out. We do the back of the head first. So we're on to the pattern clay. I'm going to put this guy safely to one side. Now the other thing you can do if you're doing a someone with a lot of cheekbone and quite a wide cheek, you can make a teardrop shape like that. I won't do it with this one because it's not needed, but you stick that there like that, and then you blend in all those sides and you've got a far rounded cheekbone.
That's quite useful when you're smiling.
Yeah, so when you're smiling, can you see you've got these nice sort of teardrop that goes towards the ear and round up there. That's how you do that. And again, if you want to have a more pronounced chin, you can add a flat dot and then blend that in. But you just got to make sure that you don't mess with the mouth too much when you do that. But these are all fixes you can do at the end if you think your face don't look right. But I'm quite happy with them. Now, if I was doing a person, I would do the hair and then I'd put the ears on, because the amount of times where I've done the ears first and then knocked them off, it's so annoying. And I have shown me doing ears on YouTube on my dragon riding lady, but Sasquatch, their ears are under their hair. So we got to do this big conical head shape. I'm going to measure out a bit more clay, I think. Here we go. That looks about right. That's going to go into a ball. Now, if I tried to just add that ball onto the back, trying to push that flat against the rest of the head will deform it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my thumb and I'm starting to push the base of that ball into a flat disc and pinch out around the edges. See? So we've now got more of a cap shape. And I ain't worrying about getting the point yet. I'm just getting it so that it will fit the roundness of the back of the head. And it won't trap too much air. So I'm pushing the centre of the top of that head into place there. And I'm making sure I push from the centre bit out to the edges, so that any air that's in there is moving out where I want it to not be trapped, basically. Now I want to go down the back of the neck, because the hair goes all the way like so, and you're just gonna have a push and a finagle to get it in place. Now don't forget, we're going to put those brow ridges in, so you don't really worry about the line around the face shape. The main thing you're trying to do is join it up to the back of the neck there and into the shoulders without taking too much clay off the top. And then you start to shape that conical shaped head. So, like so. And if you push down on the tip, it makes it wider at the base. So I want to go more round and a bit more up, like that. And the clay will really do what you want it to do. I think that looks like it to me. Yeah. Now we need to get the cheek and chin patterned clay in before we start scoring in any of the. Let's lay you down without damaging that point. There we go. Right. So there's no point scoring it in until we've actually got the whole fur on the cheeks and the chin. So what I'm looking for is a triangle. It's probably about that big, and that's going in to the cheek like that. It doesn't really matter about that top joining edge because we're going to blend it all in. So that's your first bit in, and we're going to repeat that again on the other side. Don't make it too thick, because you be aware about fur length compared to the size of the model. If it is something with very thick baggy fur, then by all means make that clay a bit more thicker, but it definitely is something that you need to be aware of. Right, that needs to come round a bit more. So let's make that bigger. You can do this. Say that you made some clay and it wasn't big enough to fill in the gap properly. So let's have a look like that. It sits in place nice, but can you see around the bottom of the neck there? It doesn't. Just take another bit and add it in. Where we're going to scratch out fur, that join line just will vanish. So you can really just patch this stuff in quite nicely like that. Yeah? So now I've got those in, I'm going to scratch it all up so that the fur looks right. Needle tool, make sure that's pushed down nicely, and we're going to do some rough scratch marks along the face. Be careful that you're not scratching the skin tones and that you've got not just the top surface but down the sides there. So you're doing all the side of the clay, and then the middle bit's pretty easy just to scratch it in. And do pay attention to the direction the fur would be laying. That's the direction you're going to be scratching. See how that just completely vanished? Join line, no join line. And all I did was laid it on its side and went across like that instead of on its tip. Sorry, down a bit like this, scratchy 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 all the way around.
Make them as if you can be in the centre like you are now. Thank you.
And we're going to bring those scratches up to that point. Now I will get about edge lines like that. Instead of going back, which I find still leaves you a straight line, if you come forward instead, you get a more rough, it looks more like a fringe. And see, blends in better. And then just continue those lines onwards on the rest of it. And you're not looking for a single continuous long line, you're looking for little tiny dotty lines. And don't worry if they're not all going exactly the same direction. Nature's not that bothered by uniform, it looks fine. So again, make sure it's all pushed down firmly, and we're going to use the side across any of the join lines like that, because it helps push it down and score at the same time. And then the tip for the middles like so, and bring those lines down around the edge of that patterned bit of clay. See, it comes in quick. Yeah, do the last bit up here. I've done something very weird to my back this week. It's hurting, but in a horizontal line about a centimetre thick. It's very strange. So
You don't have to go down, but if you can be more in the camera, it helps. Sorry.
no idea what's caused it. It's been since Sunday. I am not going to the doctors with it because
You might need to Zoom a doctor.
I tend to avoid going to the doctor, so when I end up at the GP, it's because I've got 15 things to talk to her about usually.
Can you Skype or Zoom or whatever, doctor?
Probably. Having all the health issues I've got, I tend to just not want to be around them. It's not that they're particularly bad, I've got enough going on in my life that's medical based. I don't want more. So that's all scored in nicely now, so it looks like the rest of the body. So we got the chin, the moustache and the eyebrows, and it's really dealer's choice with the moustache and eyebrows which way around you do it, but the chin needs to be done as the next stage. So let's put this down. I'm going to rest you on your female because I don't want to squash your head, so I'll lean you up like that. Right, what we're going to do, clear all this out. We're looking for a triangle that is thick enough to go, well, wide enough to go across that chin. So I'm pinching out one side, pinching out another side. It's a rough sort of pointy bit with long sticky outy bits, so it looks like a false beard. Does that make sense? And see if it fits. Yes, it does. Now, before we put it on, we're going to score out the bottom of it. So put it down on your glass bench. I know there's a lot of people that use different surfaces for their polymer clay, but just can't beat glass. I've tried everything. And we're going to put that fringe effect in along that bottom line. I will hold it up once I've done it, but you've got to use the glass counter to just help you make that scraggly edge to your clay. Now, it is easier if you do all the scoring in along the top as well before you put it in place, because then you ain't going to scratch up that top lip. See? So I made what looks far more like a beard now, yeah? Then we put that in place. Like so. Now, we still need to do those join-ins there. But if we were trying to do all the scoring, it would have been difficult. Does that make sense? So I'm going to do a little bit more just to make sure that it's pushed in place. And I'm using the tip of the point to push it in place around that chin, because it might as well be doing score lines whilst I'm securing it. If you used like something flat, that would just smudge it all out. So, and again, that excess I'm just pushing into that side fur like that. Let's bring that join line there. So can you see the difference between that side as opposed to that bump there? Yeah? So that's what we're doing. We're just pushing that down and joining all that in so that it looks right. Like so. There. Right. Almost there, mate. 2 more facial features. Let's stand you up because I'm very worried if I bake it down, it's gonna smush out the back of the head. So what I'm probably gonna do is get a glass tumbler and put it in a glass tumbler when I bake it, or a jam jar, so it's standing upright. Right, that moustache. So we're gonna start out with 2 balls that are the same size, one for each side of the moustache. And then we're going to take that ball and twist a long stick from the bump like that. So it's like an elongated teardrop. Push it down a bit. Same with the other one. Taking out a longer stick from that ball while still keeping the bump. And we're going to push those together like that and push them down. Then we're going to score them on the glass table before putting them on. And it's no biggie if you smudge out all your design by putting it in place. You can always score it again in place, but this way you're less likely to jump the needle over and hit the nose. So being careful, you're attaching, you go, oops, that's too big for the lip, which this is. This is why I don't measure, is because it's so easy to fix the problem by just smushing it together. So it's now thinner. I just went along and did that. It would take me longer to measure out the space than it would for me just to eyeball it and then fix it if it's wrong. So like that. Okay, moustache is in place. We're making sure that it is firmly pushed down, and where I squeezed it out, I'm just putting those ridges back in. Now there's nothing more annoying than going to your oven and finding that a bit has fallen off in the oven because you haven't pushed it on properly. So you need to be able to get it so that you can do that and nothing is falling. Yeah? And the only thing I can say about working out how hard to push things on and how to do it without distorting the work you've already done is it's all practice, and it's hard to quantify in an actual explanation. So all we've got to do are these nice big brow ridges, and then our dude is done. Plan is for next week I'm going to make a grass base and some stones and mount the three Sasquatches on that. Then hopefully I bought some stamping metal, and I'm gonna get my metal letter shapes and stamp out Sasquatch family to put on the base of the plaque as well. So yeah, next week is scenery and positioning. So same as we did with the moustache, but slightly smaller top balls. That one's good. This one's good. And I will smooth that into place. Sorry, put the lines in place. You're allowed to sneeze. It is that time of year. So if you hear sneezing, it's because Jamie's as hay fevered as I am. I'm going to put the hairlines on these in place because it's not anywhere near anything that I'm liable to catch. So I'm doing quite a frowny sort of shape. So a nice brow arch and a slight tick at the corner, just because I think it looks aesthetically pleasing to do that. And the same the other side, like so, in a curve and a slight tick at the corner. That one's slightly longer than that one, so what I'll do is that little bit of extra, I'm just going to pinch it off, because again, Carly don't measure.
What he likes said, maybe you've noticed their name is a really nice shade of blue in the chat today, but it's not showing up blue for me.
Oh, it's not showing up blue for us, so I'm glad it's nice for you guys though. That's what I like to hear. So that's the brow ridges in, and anywhere that there is pattern clay showing, you're going to score in those score lines for the hair. And make sure you're not pushing on the top of your head to rest your hand, because you don't want to smudge out all the hair that you've done on the top of the head, because we're not about to do work that we didn't need to do, as much as it's fun. So just scratching away at these. It'll take me a few seconds, and it's easy. I've got to do it in a position where I can see, and this is it. You see I went all the way up, all the way around, all the way under, because it looks odd if everything's got lines apart from one patch. And trust other people to spot it. I think one of my biggest mess ups was one of my humanoids, I think, has 2 left hands. We all do these things, and you take it as a learning curve. Unfortunately, it wasn't a free floating hand, so I couldn't snap it off and do it again. I love the fact that as long as you haven't varnished it, you can rebate polymer clay as many times as you want. And the thing is, most of the polymer clays do their own varnishes that can be put through the oven, and I've used most of them, and I tell you, they all go sticky. Right, I reckon he's done. So, what do you reckon?
Says those brows are really something.
Yeah, they get described as Neanderthal pronounced brow wedges, is what gets put in the description all the time. So I thought, there we go. So what we're going to do is, when we mount them...
His whole face is amazing.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased with them. We're going to put some of the food that we made last week in his hand, and he will be like that, giving the food over to the female.
That's next week, isn't it?
And that'll be in next week. So I'll finish it off here, and I will go and bake him probably tonight. So I hope you all have a really good week, and I look forward to seeing you all next week, where we can get this whole thing finished up and ready to move on to the next thing, which I haven't thought of yet. Any ideas? I'm trying to stay with cryptid and mythical animals at the moment, so if any of you got any suggestions on what you want me to make next. I've made a kraken, I've made a dragon, that's already done, but any suggestions, put them in the comments below. Like, share, follow, comment, all these good things. I really like to work with you guys and hear from you all. Have a great week, and I'll see you all next week then.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming, everyone. Here you go. Last shots. Bye.